Relay all Phobos units. Today we're painting the Invictor tactical warsuit for Warhammer 40,000. So deploy the Vanguard and let's do some hobby. So here we have the Invictor tactical warsuit. I already assembled this before I started recording, and I've sub-assembled it into several pieces, which I think just makes it easier to paint. But one of the mistakes I've made with sub-assembly is I haven't checked that the parts go back together. So these side stubbers, they actually don't fit back underneath those armor plates. So I had to go and scrape away the little guides there and the tab that would allow me to rotate these guns to actually get it back where it needs to go once I've finished painting it. I've also had to scrape away some of the tabs for the cage. Another thing is this warsuit has two different weapon options and only one piece that actually fits the weapons on. So I'm going to magnetize this piece to allow me to swap the weapons. So I'm going to clip away the tabs here and drill a hole in the middle that's the same size as some of these smaller magnets. And then I'm just going to glue some magnets in here. This took 2 magnets to fill the space so it's nice and flush. And then I put magnets on the ends of the guns there, and as you can see, they snap in together and that will let me pull the gun in and out. So the next thing is a base. I use Sector Mechanicus for this army, but they only do up to a 65mm base, whereas the Invictor warsuit is a 90mm. But I did have this ferrotonic incinerator that I'm probably never going to use, and it comes with some walkways that are the same as the Sector Mechanicus. So I need to glue 2 of those together to get it big enough to then cut out a base of 90mm. So I'm going to use a hole saw to do this. So I've clamped it down on my desk and then just using the hole saw, drill a hole in. I've accidentally drilled a bit too far, a little bit into my desk, but the result of that is I now have a base that's exactly 90mm that I can put my warsuit on. So I'm just going to clean up the edges, just smooth them out. And I'm going to use some green stuff to help do this because there's a few different ridges and things that I need to fill in to make it look somewhat like the edge of a base. So I just use some green stuff, get some water and smooth that out. And then I took some terrain pieces from various Necromunda terrain sets and just added some bits and pieces on there to make it look interesting. So once that's done, I'm ready to spray. So I spray all the pieces in Chaos Black, and the base color for my Space Marine chapters is a very dark grey. So I start off with Corvus Black and do a really heavy dry brush, just leaving the Chaos Black on the pieces I want to do metal. And when I dry brush, I actually want to keep a little bit of moisture in the paint, so I use the back of my hand to get a bit of feel for that. So once the Corvus Black is done, the next color is Mechanicus Standard Grey. So dry brush all over every part, starting to focus more on the edges, and you'll see it starts to build up a nice highlight on all of the pieces. And then lastly, I use Dawnstone, really just on the edges of all the armor plates, just to get a bit of a final edge highlight there. So next up, I use Rattling Grime to paint any of the parts that I want to go back to a black. So the aerials are one piece, and then there's a few pipes and cables and things at the back of the model, so I just paint those in Rattling Grime just to dull it back down. Next, for all the metal, there's quite a bit. I start off with Lead Belcher, and initially I was dry brushing the Lead Belcher on, but then later on I just reverted to more of a standard base coat because the washes and things that I do later, so Nuln Oil washover or anything, that brings down the Lead Belcher. And then I just do a edge highlight with some Necron compound, just focusing on the edges of the metal. Next up, there's some other metal parts, some details that I want to not be silver. So Balthazar Gold for like the exhaust parts across the model. The little Mechanicus type symbol at the back, I'm going to do it in Retributor armor. And then there's also the bullets in the stubber, the shells, and then some screaming bell for some of the canister type things on the heavy flamer. So with those non-silver parts, I wash those in Agrax Earthshade to give them a bit of a warmer shade compared to the Nuln Oil on the silver. Next, I use Mephiston Red to paint the fist of my Warsuit. So my Marines all have a red fist, so I do the same thing on the Warsuit. And then there's a couple of other parts that I want that red detail, like the large canister on the flamer, the missiles on the top, and then the company symbol on the knee pad of the Warsuit is also going to be red. And then I use Nuln Oil to dull that down to more of a kind of crimson color. Next, with some grey cere, I'm going to go back over some of the parts that I want to then paint in other brighter colors. So the seat, some of the lights and control panel bits and pieces. There's a few control panels underneath the torso. So just go around and paint those in grey cere. And at the back of the missile pods, I'm not sure if these are actually control panels, but they look like them. And then the bullet belts for the stubbers. And now first I'm going to use some Cygor Brown for the leather parts. So the seat and the bullet belts are going to be Cygor Brown. Put it on pretty thick. And next is a variety of bright colors to paint the little details. So I end in yellow for the lights, Dark Angels, green for some of the monitor looking parts, some Flesh Tearers red, and other just various random bright colors for the buttons and things. Now what I also do that's unique to my army is I paint some war paint. So these guys are kind of like a snake kind of cult, so I put some fangs on one of the armor plates, and then just some geometric type patterns, some kind of savage patterns. I didn't really have any reference, just went randomly. And then last of all, I'm going to put some battle damage. So start off with some Rhinox hide and just stipple it around the edges, especially for parts that I think would get chipped off, and then follow that up with some lead belcher doing the same thing. Just go all around the model until you're happy with the result. You can kind of go as heavy or light as you prefer. Next, I'm going to use some Abaddon Black to do some soot effect on some of the barrels and exhausts. And I'm going to go a bit further and create like a muzzle burn on the flamer. So do some purple contrast about halfway down the barrel there, and then some Storm Fiends, some blue at the edge. So just build it up slowly till it looks to your preference. Now I'm going to paint the pilot the same way that I would paint my normal foot marines. So got his harness and little controls and stuff that I'll do in lead belcher, and his little eyepiece there and parts of his helmet. Like the other models, his fist is going to be red, as well as his company marking on his knee pad. He has a bald head, so I'm going to paint that in grey cere, as well as the faceplate of his helmet. Then dull all that down with some Nuln Oil all over the silver and red parts. He's got a belt in Cygor Brown. I used Guilliman flesh for his face, so he's got quite a light head. And then add on some little wall paint details on some of the parts of him, as well as the battle damage, the same way I did with the Warsuit, using the Rhinox hide, and then follow that up with a bit of lead belcher. So once he's done, the next stage is transfers. So I've got my custom chapter symbol transfers. So I'm going to cut some of those out, and I immerse them in some water, and then use some Decal Fix and paint that on the parts where I want the transfer to go. This helps it stick a bit better. After about 30 seconds or so, fish the transfer out and it should slide onto where I want, and just make some adjustments. So I've got the little fast attack symbol and the squad symbol. Not sure if Warsuits go by squad. Then I use some decal softener to go over the top of that, and that kind of melts it, the film. My custom chapter symbols, they have this yellow border on them for some reason, so I go around and paint that away. And then I use some Nuln oil, the same as the fist, to just dull it down to a darker crimson, and then do some battle damage like the whole rest of the model, using the Rhinox hide and lead belcher combination. So next I'm going to paint the base. So I start off with Mechanicus standard grey as the base colour, and then I just do a dry brush first with grey sear, including the ammo crates or anything I'm going to paint in a brighter colour, and then finally with some Praxetti white to really bring it up. Then I got to go back with Abaddon black and repaint any of the parts that are going to be various metal colours. So I start off with lead belcher as the main metal, do all the grates and just some various bits and pieces, pick them out. Next, Balthazar gold to do the little cogs, and just go down in order of volume. The next one is Screaming Bell for one of the little canisters, and then finally some Retributor gold for just some of the little details there. Then use some bright colours. Start off with Mephiston red to do the big tank, and then also some of the little handles, and most importantly some of the cables that snake all the way through these Sector Mechanicus terrain pieces. And then do the same thing with the different bright colours, so blue, green, yellow, just picking out all of the little cables in various colours to give it a little bit of a pop. Next I'm going to paint the ammo crate. So Creed Camo is the main colour for the crate itself, and then the munitions inside. Got some Blood Angels red for the missiles there. The grenades, I've decided they're some kind of mustard gas or something, so I'm going to paint those in yellow. Nazdrag yellow this one is, and then all of the bullet belts I will do in Cygor brown. And then the console, so the monitors will be in Dark Angels green, and then these little vacuum tube things I'll do in Ianden yellow. The buttons I'll do in Flesh Terrors red, and then the skull is Skeleton Horde. Once that's done, we're going to add some battle damage. So like the Invictor model, start off with Rhinox hide and just stipple that all around. But next I'm going to use a Doombull brown to go roughly over the top of that, and then some Riser rust dry brushed over that, and then some lead belcher finally, so it gives it a more rusted effect compared to the Space Marine model. Finally I'm going to use that Doombull brown to do some dust, rusty dust kind of effect on the lower parts of the Warsuit. Then I stick the thing to the base using some paper clips as pins, and glue everything on top of that. I decided to glue this instead of let it swivel because it's just a bit more sturdy in the end. And once we're done, we have one Warsuit ready for battle. So hopefully that helps you paint your Vanguard spearhead and get ready for the tabletop. Thanks for watching.